Welcome, everyone. As Justin said, it's really nice to see everybody. I ran into some very familiar faces on the way up here. There's a lot of new faces. We'll talk about that in a minute. And sort of talking about familiar faces. I was in Paris a few months ago, and I think I saw Simon over there. I ran into him. I was on a panel with Simon Thomas and Justin from Barb, and they said to me, you're really lucky to be invited to speak at Future TV by Justin, because generally Justin only invites you twice to speak at Future TV. The first time, on your way up, and the second time on your way down. You know what's coming, right? I did steal that joke from Justin, so I'm not even going to finish it because you all know the ending. But it's really good to be back, Justin. Thank you very much. So what I figured I'd do, yeah, this is me. That's fine. You've seen that. Because this is sort of our 10-year anniversary, as helping Justin out, put the best event of the circuit, and many people say, and I think it's true, it's not the holidays or Christmas until we've had this event. So, in advance, happy holidays and Merry Christmas, because we've had Future TV now, or we're opening it. We have a fantastic program. Like I said, a lot of new faces. For the first time, we'll have Netflix come up. We'll also have Google, YouTube. Justin, well done. I know they were persistent, so well done. So what I thought I'd do for the sort of few minutes is take you through what I've heard, what I've seen over the past 10 years of this event. Many people have heard many things, said many things, but this is sort of from my perspective, from an ad tech perspective, what I've seen. And Justin, I'll put this up because I know you and I stood up on stage 10 years ago and said this was going to be the future of TV. And thank God we were wrong. But if we start from the first bit, and in this conference, for the first 5 years, all we could talk about was how complicated things were if you were a broadcaster, it was called the future of TV advertising, to put ads across a myriad of screens. We went from one screen in the home to 3 screens to 5 and to now over 20. But the first 5 years were really about putting ads in front of audiences. So you've seen a version of this screen, or even a version of this one. For those of you who were around, we've seen this about a million times. But this really affected what we were trying to solve for at the time. And obviously, we solved it as an industry together, from an ad tech perspective, from a publisher perspective, even from a buy-side perspective. Terms like BVOD, AVOD, replay sort of made it through this conference. And we then enter a more complicated phase, and an era that I would call a little bit controversial. And, I was trying to find the best picture for controversy, and I thought this is the World Cup, so I'm going to use this one. But this really became a tough period because, on one end, you had sort of publishers and broadcasters trying to make their inventory available in a more automated workflow. And you had a lot of people on the buy side trying to access this inventory. And, programmatic was effectively mentioned for the first time in 2016, 2017. And we started to talk about this. And the more technical slide I could find to represent this era is this one, where what folks were trying to do is prevent cherry picking on one side and try to cherry pick on the other. So you can imagine how well that was going. That only lasted a few years, but in reality, it was really difficult for broadcasters on this stage to effectively resist the temptation of not making their inventory more available programmatically, for the very simple reason that, terms like arbitrage, cherry picking appeared. Some people at that time even started, barter and travel agencies, but that's another story. Then we hit 2020, and we all got locked down. And all of a sudden, this limited supply, became a thing of the past almost immediately. We watch more TV than ever. And so it was effectively an issue for the publishers who we had a limited supply, became relatively pointless because inventory was flowing. We were all subscribing to a number of services. We were accessing more content than ever. New distribution channels appeared, the fast channels appeared, and so at the end of the day, there was inventory to buy. And so programmatic, thrived at that point, and all of a sudden what was an issue around cherry picking was no longer an issue. And everybody really, if you look at, I didn't pick on anybody in particular, but this is what happened for, NatTech talk in 2020. And then of course we hit 2022, and, it felt a little bit tricky. There was a lot of factors and a lot of things, but we're effectively back where we started in 2019. With inventory being a little bit more constrained, we're watching less TV. People are switching to an AVOD model, so inventory is becoming sort of more diversified. So as we head into, and of course this is what happened when you think about it, as we head into 2023, and what I hope is sort of an era of collaboration, more openness and inclusion. Of course, you guys will recognize this picture from last week. There are a few things I want to leave you with. There's no doubt that the industry and the distribution methods have completely changed. These are figures from the US. 30% of the impressions that we FreeWheel have served in the last 6 months have come from fast channels. So there's no doubt new consumption methods. Of course, it's accelerated because this is the US, and so it's a different topology of market. But this is, a very critical moment that we're witnessing. There's a lot of upside, still to automate. Only 12% is traded programmatically to date. And why? Because this is a complex workflow. We do this at FreeWheel 3 billion times a day, from one play at a user all the way to an impression being served 3 billion times a day. And you can see how the chain has become much harder, much more complicated, with many more partners. And so as we consider doing this, there's still issues remain, right? We are still not good enough at filling the gaps, particularly in these new channels. 25% on these fast channels of the impression go unfilled. And so the issue that we have to solve as we look at, and we'll talk about it for the next 2 days, as we look at this conference and still have to solve as we consider these new transaction method, is this, right? We don't want to see this in any new distribution channel. TV works great. This doesn't happen on TV, so let's not reduce the end user experience, and let's make sure this doesn't happen on any of the channels that we call TV. Thank you very much, everybody. Justin, back to you.